Greetings. Father Mark signing on, continuing the series on the late medieval, early modern period, moving into the reign of Pope 200, the sixth of the Avignon popes, Blessed Urban V, reigned from 362 to, I keep doing that, thinking patristics, 1362 to 1370. The conclave of 1362 was presented with the usual problems: ethnic hatreds, family rivalries, French royal pressure, with, inherited from the previous pontificate, a papal army in Italy under the command of Cardinal Albornoz, still fighting to restore sufficient stability to enable the Holy See to return from Avignon, France, back to Rome. For reasons that should by now be completely predictable, most of the French cardinals in the conclave did not want to return to Rome, so they wanted to elect a man who would either summon Cardinal Albornoz back to Rome and give up the whole attempt to restore the papal state, or would let him continue and restore order to the papal state and then just delegate him to govern it as a papal legatus if he managed to reconquer it. In the end, the conclave could not agree after a week of deliberations. They did not dare to allow a long conclave with so much instability in the world, so they unanimously decided to elect someone from outside of the conclave, someone who was not a cardinal. So they chose a well-respected Benedictine monk. His baptismal name was William de Grimoard. That's Grimord. There has not been a Pope William. There could be, but he didn't. He did not keep his name as Pope. Instead, he reigned under the papal name Urban V for 8 years and 3 months. Born in southern France, 1310, de Grimoard was of the French aristocracy, a younger son given to the church at an early age following that feudalism pattern. His family gave him to the important and historic Benedictine Abbey of St. Victor in Marseille. Marseille is a French port on the Mediterranean on the southern coast. He studied canon law at Montpellier, receiving his doctorate in 1342. He was employed afterward as vicar general in the Diocese of Clermont before becoming abbot of Saint-Germain in Auxerre in 1352. In that capacity, he came into contact with a wider ecclesiastical circle of southern France, and he impressed everyone with his canonical expertise, along with his personality. He had a very calm and approachable temperament, very well-mannered, very, professional, in a good sense. As a result, it was no surprise that he was used by Pope Innocent VI as a diplomat. Pope Innocent, dispatched him, Abbot de Grimoard, on a mission to the Kingdom of Naples in order to obtain support from them for the operations being conducted by Cardinal Albornoz for the restoration of order in the Papal States. With such a background, it's rather curious that the French cardinals would vote for this guy, but it is possible that they assumed he had only been acting on papal orders, but that his own preference as a Benedictine of France, a French Benedictine, would be to stay in his region, meaning that he would keep the Holy See in Avignon. In any case, he accepted election on the 28th of September, 1362. Having seen the situation in Italy firsthand, and having met Cardinal Albornoz in person earlier in his life, as Pope, later Blessed Urban V, was determined to continue the initiative of Innocent VI to return the Holy See to Rome. The Archbishop of Milan, important city in Lombardy in northern Italy, and a member of the very powerful House Visconti, remained an obstacle to this objective. and had reassembled, House Visconti had reassembled the old Ghibelline network, as we covered earlier in the medieval course, which were the pro-imperial, just the pro-imperials in multiple countries, meaning pro-imperial anti-papal forces in Italy, Germany, and all over, to oppose Cardinal Albornoz and to oppose the objective of returning the Holy See to Rome, knowing that that would make the church ultimately stronger. And so the Ghibellines didn't want that. They wanted the papacy to stay weak. So it was to their advantage that the Holy See stay in France and therefore be discredited and considered to be completely controlled by the French monarchy. To cope with this restoration of the Ghibelline network, Pope Urban revived the old Guelph network, the pro-papal network. And the mechanism he chose to do this was to assemble a league of city-states in Tuscany. Tuscany is the region of Italy north of the papal state, but south of Lombardy, where Milan is. Tuscany included famous cities like Florence, Ferrara, Pisa, Siena. Further, Pope Urban took the bold step of physically moving elements of and personnel of the Curia, the Papal Senior Administrative Council, back to Italy. And he personally joined them. He physically, as Pope, he went back to Italy. Landing by instead of, he didn't cross the Alps. That would have been too dangerous. So instead he took ship and landed at Corneto, which was on the western side of Italy, on June 3rd, 1367. He had sent messages ahead, so he was welcomed by envoys from the city of Rome. They informed him that conditions in the city of Rome were so chaotic that it was not safe for him to physically return to Rome yet. So he remained within the fortifications of Corneto, and until Cardinal Albornoz arrived with an army to escort him. But they eventually did. With the army, Albornoz's army, he re-entered Rome. There he saw the conditions were appalling. The Lateran Palace, the official cathedral, still the official cathedral of the Diocese of Rome, had long since been burned out by looters. Hundreds of vagrants were living in the basilica. Other major churches had suffered the same fate, or, alternatively, were taken over by gangs or free companies where they lived and stabled their horses inside of the churches. Albornoz advised the Pope that the Vatican was a more defensible location on the other side of the river, of the Tiber River. So Pope Urban followed his advice and set up camp there, after the squatters who had been living in St. Peter's had either been killed or driven out. Now, Pope Urban had been to Italy before becoming Pope, but never to the city of Rome. Seeing the situation firsthand shook his confidence that returning the Holy See to such a city was a wise move. The unhappy French cardinals who accompanied him perceived this and then wheedled. They worked on that, pushing him to return to the comparative safety of Avignon. When Cardinal Albornoz died suddenly on August 23rd, 1367, Urban became seriously alarmed. Still, he decided he wanted to make the attempt. He set about repairing the damage in the city, and he decided to invite the two emperors to the city of Rome as a symbol of the Holy See's return. The two emperors were the Holy Roman Emperor, the Sacrum Imperator Romanorum, who at the time was Charles IV, and the other was the Greek Byzantine Emperor, who at the time was Joannes John V. And both accepted the invitation. The Holy Roman Emperor, Karl, accepted for his own reasons because he wanted to receive coronation from the Pope for himself and his wife in the city of Rome, because that would add to his prestige among his thanes, his Adlingen in Germany. Whereas the Byzantine Emperor, John V, also agreed, for his own reasons, that in order to obtain Western military assistance against the Turks, and we'll go into more detail with that later. The Turks by this point had become Islamic. So they did it. We had the three senior people in Christendom, the Pope and the two emperors. They met in the city of Rome in 1368 and stayed into the next year. The Emperor John V even publicly went through the ceremony of rejoining the Catholic Church. As you remember, there was a schism still going on. But no senior Byzantine clergy were present. There were some Byzantine priests there, just as the emperor's chaplains, but there was none of the patriarchs or archbishops were there. So no one took it as anything other than a publicity stunt, as a way to try to recruit Western knights to go fight for the Byzantines. Yet the Pope, even though he realized he was being used, he did see possibilities in the Greek request for military aid. He thought essentially another crusade would be a way of uniting the marauding free companies in a crusade and sending them somewhere else, sending them east to fight Islam, rather than having them rampaging around Europe causing all the trouble that they were. But just from our brief exposure to the free companies, the condottieri, you no doubt can conclude in your own that they would have zero interest in this, because to go on crusade against the Turks would be real warfare. And the Turks were going to try to kill them and were going to pursue decisive victory, whereas the free companies fighting against each other would not, because they both wanted to keep the warfare and their income going. And apart from anything else, just getting to the east would have been a long, arduous journey, and just the trip, people could die on the trip. So this projected crusade amounted to nothing. In the end, the precarious situation in Italy wore down Pope Urban's resolve, and he gave up, and he returned. He decided to return the Holy See back to Avignon, France. He re-entered the city of Avignon on September 27, 1367. He died in Avignon 3 months later, on December 19th of the same year, of an illness he contracted in Italy. It's probably malaria, or maybe cholera. Before departing Pope Urban's reign, we cannot neglect to mention Saint Bridget of Sweden, who was a correspondent of the Pope and actually traveled to Italy and met the Pope in Italy when he returned. Saint Bridget of Sweden lived from 1303 to 1372. Born into the Swedish nobility, Saint Bridget was married by her, an arranged marriage. That's the way things were done then. She was married by her family, gave her in marriage to a man of another family of her class. His name was Ulf, U-L-F, Gundemarsen. The marriage took place in 1316. Now, it was arranged. Now, we saw that's another constituent problem of feudalism. Family arranging these marriages regardless of the vocation of the kids involved, which is the same malfunction that occurred with the sacrament of holy orders, with the families just sending kids into the church regardless of vocation. Nevertheless, in this case, it worked out. The two, Bridget and Ulf, did share a deep faith and a deep piety for the Catholic faith. Together, they had 8 children. And as they, in the course of their married life, they went on a pilgrimage to Compostela in Spain, and went back to Sweden. Her husband died. Ulf died in 1344, back in Sweden. And Bridget, the family had means, enough means to where she did not have to remarry to survive. So she established a religious community called the Order of the Most Holy Savior, which was designed to admit both men and women, commoners as well as members of the nobility, it would have ordained priests as well as vowed but unordained monks and nuns, choir monks and nuns, as they would say, but it would also have lay brothers and lay sisters. Their original intent was to promote prayer and scholarship, in which and they succeeded in this, and their later they would call the Brigantine, after her, but of course she didn't call them after herself. It was the Order of the Most Holy Savior. But their houses did become centers of Scandinavian culture. She began writing to Pope Urban VI and continued writing to Pope Urban V about the necessity of returning the Holy See to Rome. And remember, she had traveled the entire length of Europe on pilgrimage. She and her husband had traveled from Sweden all the way to Spain and back. So she had more exposure to more parts of the world personally than the popes had. And from this experience, she warned both popes that the average Catholic regarded the Pope as just another French bishop, and that this sentiment was common in all the countries she visited. And if this were not changed, she feared that the Holy See would eventually become, de facto, simply another French bishop, leaving the Petrine office forgotten to the detriment of the faith. When she learned that Pope Urban had in fact landed in Italy and was trying to make a go of it, she undertook the journey, crossing Europe once again from Sweden to Italy, to meet him and support him. Pope Urban was impressed with her. Of course, they had corresponded, but in this case, the meeting just enhanced the mutual respect they had for each other. He gave papal approval to her congregation, but in the end, he disappointed her by abandoning Rome. She warned him that if he left, that he soon would die, and that's a prophecy that came true. He died 3 months after returning to Avignon. The original houses in Scandinavia built in her lifetime were either destroyed or stolen during the Protestant movement of the 16th century. But the Brigantine order was refounded in other countries, and much later in the 20th century, they were refounded. They went back to Sweden, and they are still in existence, even though Sweden is officially the Swedish monarchy is officially a Protestant. Well, it's Lutheran in terms of theology, but it's the Church of Sweden. So Pope Urban V was followed as Pope 201 by Pope Gregory XI, and Pope Gregory XI is the one who would finally end the Babylonian captivity, or the Avignon papacy. So we will end here and cover him in the next video. So thank you for your attention. This session is adjourned.